The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 230. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. Well, hello, friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have an amazing lady on today. She is a comedian, an actress, and a singer, and she's also part of the Los Angeles Opera, and I'm just excited to have her on and share her story. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Miki Yamashita. Miki, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to our listeners.
Sure, I'm doing great. So I'm originally from Massachusetts. My parents came from Japan, so I'm second generation Japanese American, or Nisei, as we say. Grew up mostly in Massachusetts, and right out of high school, I went to the New England Conservatory of Music, which is in Boston. And I studied classical singing and opera there. And then I started to branch out and do other things. And I started acting and doing plays. And eventually I ended up in Orlando, Florida, working at the Walt Disney World Resort, doing sketch comedy and also singing there as well. Then I came back to the New York, New England area and did more theater and a lot of regional theater and national tours as a musical theater performer. And I also continued doing comedy as well. And I, most notably, I did the national tour of A Chorus Line, which is a very singer-dancer, actor show. And I've done many productions of that. And then I started doing television work as well in New York and was on some of the soap operas, and I was on Law and Order when those shows were still in New York. And then I booked a pilot for the Oxygen Channel, and I was the first Asian American to be cast in a pilot for Oxygen, which was at the time going through some rebranding. And then once I got to that point, I decided to come out to Los Angeles. And so out here in Los Angeles, I've been able to pursue all of the things that I was trying to do on the East Coast, both comedy and acting on television, and also going back to my classical singing roots as well, working with the Los Angeles Opera.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing all that info. And, that's quite a list that you got there. It's pretty cool that, you were able to do all those things. And what's your favorite self-confidence quote?
So when you said that you were going to ask me about that, I was, of course, scouring online to see what appealed to me. And the one I picked out was by a woman named Karen Quinones Miller. I don't know anything about her, but I really liked her quote. I think she's an author. But it says, "When someone tells me no, it doesn't mean I can't do it. It simply means I can't do it with them." And I love that quote because it's so applicable to my life as an artist and as a performer. And, you're not always going to perform for people who are going to understand what you're about or know what to do with the essence that you're putting out there or the work that you're putting out there, whether it's an audience member who's consuming your work just as a viewer, but also in terms of auditioning for work and trying to gain the acceptance of people who you want to have you want to get jobs from. And so I try really hard to get myself to accept that if I suffer rejection, or if I form for someone that doesn't necessarily get me, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not worthy of being appreciated by someone else somewhere else at some point.
I love that quote as well. And we have to realize we can't please everybody, right? We can
exactly. And you kind of if your focus is on doing that, then you're going to lose yourself. So
yeah, totally, I agree. I mean, you're just going to end up, just always pleasing others, and it's just draining. So, right. Great quote. And Miki, what would be your definition of self-confidence?
I would say my definition of self-confidence is a sense of self that remains consistent regardless of who's in the room with you, right? So a lot of times what I face as a performer is I'm told by I'm told, oh, you're going to have a meeting with this big agent, or you're going to have this audition with this really important director, or this is a really important casting director, and you can't you really want to do well so that they think well of you. But for me, as much as that, you think about, how am I going to impress this person, or how am I going to be able to prove my worth to this person? I think that no matter where I go, whether I'm talking to, a janitor, or I'm talking to, the head of a studio, I have a sense of self that doesn't change, right? And so I've worked really hard to adhere to achieve that sense of self that is always the same. And of course, your behavior is going to change no matter, depending on who you're talking to. But at the same time, your sense of self should remain the same.
That's a great definition that you shared, and it's true, right? I mean, the only way, to quote unquote impress a person is just be yourself, right? Because, things happen for a reason. If you don't get, maybe the part that you wanted, maybe you didn't get it for a reason. There's something better that comes along. And just staying true to yourself will help you get in that direction. So great definition. And Miki, what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
I was a hot mess, Sheena. I'm not going to lie. I think this happened. It wasn't overnight, of course, but over many years of just experiencing life, especially as a performer and an artist my existence is dependent on a strong sense of self, but at the same time, it is somewhat dependent on what other people think of me, right? So you have to strike the right balance. And I remember earlier on in my career, I was constantly and just frantically trying to adjust myself all the time to please other people, or to try and guess what was going to be what someone else wanted of me at that moment, or in that place, right? And I remember it was just exhausting, because I was constantly trying to earn the approval of people that oftentimes were not going to approve of me regardless of what I put out there, right? So it was just a wild goose chase. And I remember thinking, how am I ever going to truly make it in the sense that I feel successful within myself if I'm just desperately chasing after what someone else is going to think is what they want? So I would say that there was a lot of confusion on my part, and there was just a lot of just a frantic energy that was exhausting me, but wasn't really getting me anywhere. And once I started realizing over time that when I was the happiest after auditions or big meetings or big performances, when I was the happiest was when I gave exactly the performance that I wanted to give. That was my artistic essence and my artistic soul, and really was as authentic and undiluted a version of myself as it could possibly be. And that's when I found that people were gravitating towards me, and people were drawn to me versus me chasing constantly after something that I may or may not be able to catch,
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we try to force a lot of things into our lives, right? Whether it's trying to impress someone, trying to seek approval, trying to please others, not realizing that it's kind of like a shit show when that happens.
Yeah, it's completely a mess.
Yeah.
And then what people perceive then is, oh, that's the girl that's a total mess, always trying to, that girl is just, her energy is not centered. People can sense that from you. And it's also, it drives people away. And once I thought to myself, I'm not gonna, yes, as much as I want success a lot, and as much as I feel it's important that every time I do anything, it's a statement about myself, and it's a statement about the larger statement that, as a woman of color, I am out there, I am trying to get my voice heard. It's all a big, what I call the rep sweats, where you're representing, Asianness or Asian Americanness or whatever, that whole thing gets tied up in it too. But I found that my being myself and my being true to exactly what I want to express as an artist and as a person, that no matter what, it's going to be. I'm always going to be Asian American. I'm always going to be Miki, the singer, the comedian, the artist. And as long as I stay as close to that authentic self as I possibly can, then it's not really going to matter if one or two people here and there say, I don't get her. I don't know what her deal is. It's just not for me. Okay, so then it's not for you, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree on that. You know, after that realization, when you realize you can just be your authentic self, what's your life been like now?
I fear less that I'm going to lose something because I'm sticking to my guns about being myself, right? So I used to have that fear of missing out thing, right? Where, why am I not being seen for this role? Why is so-and-so getting all these auditions? And why is that person on a sitcom and I'm not, or whatever? And I realized that once I realized that I wasn't willing to change certain things about myself that I felt were critical to being myself, I didn't feel that if I lost any jobs over it or lost any opportunities, that it was really that much of a loss to begin with. Because I would have had to do that thing where I'd lose myself and chase after things the way I used to. And so once I realized that I wasn't willing to change myself every time that I wanted something, it didn't really matter to me that if I ended up without the job or without the audition, because in the end, I didn't really lose anything because I didn't have to sacrifice any part of myself.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And, you know, it's a great feeling when you realize when you're true to yourself, that's when the right things come to us. And, you know, just because one door closes, you know, another door will always open. And I always believe that. So, you know, I think our listeners also have to realize just because you didn't get, you know, something that you wanted, maybe it wasn't meant for you and there's something better out there. And, you know, Miki, to the woman who's listening to your episode, she may be on her own journey to self-confidence. What would be that one tip you would give to her?
I would say listen to yourself as often as you can, even if you have some sort of morning ritual or something or you have a moment during the day where you're confused about what to do or you're not sure or you're making a big decision. It's a lot of times the answer is right there within yourself. And you just take a few moments throughout the day to check in with yourself and say, is this right? Is this me? You know? And I would focus on building, and I say this a lot to a lot of women, if you focus on building yourself into the person that is complete by herself, all alone, and don't think of that completion as coming from someone else, or if I find the right relationship, then I'll finally be that person that I dream of being. No, that's within you. And you can complete that building process within yourself, and that you'll probably find the right relationship and the right job and all those things once you've completed that work on your own.
Great tip that you mentioned, and it's true, right? Everything has to start with you. I mean, if you can't figure out the kind of love that you deserve, I mean, that's where you have to start. It's like, you know, learning to love yourself, learning to know what you want in life so that you can attract the right things. So thanks for sharing that tip. And Miki, if our listeners wanted to connect with you and get to know a little bit more about what you do, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
I am on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is Miki, M as in mother, IKI, so MIKI 410. So it's Miki 410. That's on Twitter. And I'm 410 because I'm 4'10". So I'm very petite, so I think that's part of why I have to overcompensate by being so confident. But so I'm Miki 410 on Twitter, and I'm Miki 410 on Instagram as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Miki, you can also head on over to thetaoofselfconfidence.com and search for Miki's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else we talked about. And I really want to thank Miki for taking the time to share her story and journey with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This was fantastic. And I hope that your podcast, I'm sure you've done so many. I'm so glad to be a part of it. And I'm sure that you've helped many women. And I hope that this episode helps them too.
Thanks. And I'm sure this episode will help our listeners out there realize their true potential. So it was an honor having you on the show. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of the Tao of Self-Confidence. Want to learn how you can use podcasting to market your business? Download your free report by visiting our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits.